The stars looked different that night. Jake Martinez sat in his control chair at the Deep Space Communications Center, drinking his third cup of coffee and watching the endless streams of data flow across his screens. He had been monitoring space for 12 years, and nothing interesting ever happened. Satellites broke down, solar flares caused static, and sometimes a piece of space junk would drift too close to Earth. That was about it. But tonight was different. The computers were picking up something strange from the outer edge of the solar system. It wasn't random noise or equipment failure. It was a signal, real signal from something out there in the dark. Jake leaned forward and adjusted his headset. The signal was getting stronger every minute. He ran the data through the translation programs, but nothing came back. Whatever was sending this message wasn't using any language the computers recognized. 3 hours later, Jake was still staring at his screens when the signal suddenly changed. The random patterns became organized. Someone or something was trying to communicate. Jake felt his heart beating faster as he realized what this meant. After decades of listening to empty space, humanity was no longer alone. The message came through in broken English, like someone had learned the language from old radio broadcasts. The voice was cold and mechanical, with strange pauses between words. This world now belongs to Zephyrian Empire. Surrender your military assets. Prepare for colonization processing. You have 72 hours to comply. Jake stared at his equipment. Not believing what he had just heard, played the message again, recording every word. The voice repeated the same demand 3 times, then went silent. His hand shook as he reached for the red telephone on his desk. This was the direct line to military command, the one he had never used in 12 years of service. He picked up the phone and waited for someone to answer. This is Communications Specialist Martinez at Deep Space Command. I need to speak with Admiral Williams immediately. We have a situation. 2 hours later, Jake found himself in a room deep underground. At NORAD, the walls were thick concrete and steel, built to survive nuclear war. Admiral Kate Williams sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by the highest-ranking military officers in the country. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Play it again," she said. Jake pressed the button. On his laptop, the alien voice filled the room with its cold demand for surrender. When it finished, the room was completely quiet. Nobody spoke for a long moment. "How long until they get here?" asked General Frank Morris, the head of the Air Force. "Based on the signal strength and direction, I estimate 6 to 8 hours, Jake replied. "Maybe less if they're moving faster than we think." Screen on the wall? It showed a map of Earth's orbital space with tracking data for every satellite and piece of debris larger than a baseball. 72 hours, she said. "They're giving us time to think about it. That tells us something important." "What do you mean?" asked Colonel Betty Ross from Army Intelligence. "It means they expect us to surrender," Williams replied. "Done this before. You show up, make demands, and everyone gives up without a fight. That's how empires work when they're used to easy victories." Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Brooks, the youngest person in the room, raised his hand. He was in charge of special operations and had fought in more wars than most people twice his age. "Admiral, what do we know about their capabilities?" Williams touched. The screen and new data appeared. "Our deep space telescopes picked up their fleet 2 days ago, but we didn't know what we were looking at. 12 large ships, each about the size of Manhattan. Maybe 300 smaller vessels. Based on the energy signatures, each of those big ships carries enough firepower to destroy a major city." The room was quiet again. Everyone was doing the math in their heads. Earth's military forces were designed to fight other humans, not alien. Invaders with technology far beyond anything humanity possessed. "So what are our options?" asked General Morris. "We have 3 choices," Williams said. "We can surrender and hope they treat us well. We can try to negotiate and buy more time. Or we can fight." "Fight with what?" Maurice asked. "Our best missiles. Couldn't scratch the paint on those ships?" "Maybe not," said Brooks. "But I don't think these aliens understand what they're dealing with. They've probably conquered a lot of worlds, but I bet none of them were like Earth." Williams looked at him with interest. "Explain." Brooks stood up and pointed at the display showing the alien fleet. Look at how they're approaching. Straight line. No attempt at stealth. Broadcasting their demands openly. They're not worried about resistance because they've never faced real resistance. You think we can actually hurt them? Asked Colonel Ross. I think we can surprise them, Brooks replied. Every species they've conquered probably had the same basic approach to warfare. Build big ships, shoot at each other until someone wins. But humans don't fight fair. We use tricks, traps, and anything else that works. Admiral Williams walked back to her chair. What did you have in mind? Give me 24 hours to put together a plan. I'll need access to every military asset we have, plus some things that aren't officially military, such as civilian space vessels, mining equipment, industrial facilities. If we're going to fight an enemy this powerful, we need to use everything. Williams looked around the table at the other officers. She saw fear in some faces, but also determination. These were people who had spent their lives preparing for war, even if they had never imagined a war like this. All right, Colonel Brooks, you have your 24 hours. Everyone else, I want options. How do we evacuate cities? How do we protect critical infrastructure? How do we keep our government running if this goes badly? The meeting continued. For 6 more hours, plans were made and resources allocated. Messages were sent to allies around the world, though most other countries had already detected the alien signals and were holding similar meetings. As the sun rose over Colorado, Jake found himself back at his communications station. The alien fleet was now close enough to see with optical telescopes. The images were terrifying. Each ship was a massive cylinder covered in weapon systems and armor plating. They moved through space in perfect formation, like they had done this 1,000 times before. But Jake noticed something that gave him hope. The aliens were taking their time, confident that Earth would surrender before they arrived. They didn't know that every hour of delay gave humanity more time to prepare. Admiral Williams appeared beside his console, carrying a cup of coffee and looking like she hadn't slept at all. Any new messages? She asked. Nothing since the first? 1. They're just waiting. Good. Let them wait. Colonel Brooks is putting together something special for our visitors. Do you really think we can win? Jake asked. Williams was quiet for a moment, watching the alien ships grow larger on the screen. Jake, in my 30 years of military service, I've learned something important about fighting. It's not always the biggest or strongest who wins. Sometimes it's the one who wants it more. She paused and took a sip of her coffee. These aliens think they're conquering another weak planet. They have no idea what humans are capable of when we're fighting for our homes, our families, and our freedom. Jake looked at the approaching fleet and felt something he hadn't expected. He wasn't afraid anymore. He was angry. These strangers had come to his world and demanded surrender. They thought Earth was just another easy target. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Dr. Lisa Parker had not slept in 36 hours. Her laboratory deep beneath the Nevada desert looked like a war zone. Computer screens glowed in the darkness, showing complex equations and test results. Empty coffee cups and food containers covered every surface. Her team of 12 scientists worked around the clock, trying to turn impossible theories into working weapons. Lisa stood in front of a massive machine that hummed with dangerous energy. For 5 years, she had been working on quantum manipulation technology. The military had funded her research, hoping it might lead to better communication systems or computer processors. None of them had expected to need it as a weapon against alien invaders. How much time do we have left? Asked Dr. Ben Clark, her assistant. His hair was messy, and his lab coat was stained with chemical burns. 34 hours and 16 minutes? Lisa replied without looking at her watch. She had been counting every second since the aliens arrived. The prototype needs to work perfectly on the first try. We won't get a second chance. The machine made a low whining sound as Lisa adjusted the controls. Inside the chamber, a small piece of steel began to glow. The quantum field was breaking. Apart the bonds between atoms, turning solid metal into pure energy. If they could make this process happen faster and on a larger scale, they might have a weapon that could hurt the alien ships. The energy output is still too low, said Dr. Janet Wood from across the room. She was monitoring the test from behind a thick radiation shield. We need 10 times more power to affect anything larger than a coffee cup. And we'll find a way to get 10 times more power, Lisa said. She was exhausted, but she refused to give up. Somewhere above them, alien ships were getting closer to Earth. The lives of everyone she cared about depended on making this machine work. 200 miles away, Captain Steve Johnson was preparing for the most dangerous mission of his military career. His team of 20 Special Forces soldiers sat in the briefing room of a secret military base hidden in the Rocky Mountains. Each man had volunteered for a mission they might not survive. Our job is simple, Steve told his team. We need to place detection beacons throughout the solar system without the aliens noticing. These beacons will help our forces track enemy movements and coordinate attacks. Sergeant Mike Williams raised his hand. How do we get past their sensors without being detected? Steve pointed to the modified shuttles parked outside the briefing room. These ships have been fitted with experimental stealth technology. Hull is covered with materials that absorb radar and heat signatures. As long as we stay quiet and move slowly, they shouldn't see us coming. The mission would take 18 hours. Steve's team would split into 4 groups, each taking a different route through the outer solar system. They would plant thousands of tiny sensors on asteroids, space debris, and abandoned satellites. When the aliens moved, Earth would know about it instantly. Remember, Steve said as his team prepared to leave, these beacons are the eyes and ears of our defense network. Without them, we're fighting blind. Back on Earth, Colonel Amy Davis was coordinating the largest military operation in human history. Her command center was located in an underground bunker that had once been designed to survive nuclear war. Now, it would serve as the brain of Earth's defense against alien invasion. Amy stood in front of a wall covered with screens showing military units around the world. Every Army, Navy, and Air Force on the planet was working together for the first time in history. Political differences had been set aside. Everyone understood that this was a fight for the survival of the human race. Status report, Amy said into her headphone. Chinese forces are in position, came the first reply. 200 fighter jets ready for launch, plus missile batteries along the coast. Russian submarine fleet is standing by, said another voice. Nuclear missiles are armed and ready. European Union forces report ready, came a third report. Satellite defense network is online. Amy nodded as each report came in. She had spent 2 days organizing this massive coordination effort. It was like conducting an orchestra where every musician was playing a different song. But somehow, they had to make it work together. Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Brooks entered the command center carrying a thick folder of documents. He looked tired but excited. His special operations plan was finally ready. Tell me you have good news, Amy said. Better than good, Ryan replied. I've found a way to turn our weakness into strength. He opened the folder and spread papers across Amy's desk. The documents showed detailed plans for converting civilian spacecraft into military vessels. Cargo ships would become missile platforms. Racing vessels would carry bombs into the heart of the alien fleet. Even luxury yachts would be fitted with weapons. The aliens expect us to fight like a traditional military, Ryan explained. Ships against big ships, formation flying, predictable tactics. But what if we don't fight like that? Amy studied the plans. You want to use everything that can fly as a weapon? Exactly. Commercial pilots, amateur rocket builders, anyone with a spacecraft license, we'll train them in basic combat techniques and send them out in waves. The aliens won't know how to respond to an attack force made up of thousands of small, unpredictable targets. It's crazy, Amy said. Crazy enough that it might work. Across the country, ordinary people were volunteering for extraordinary missions. In California, former airshow pilot Ellen Hayes signed up to fly a modified crop duster against alien warships. In Texas, racing enthusiast Danny Foster was learning how to arm his speed racer with military explosives. In New York, retired airline captain Tom Brown was helping convert passenger jets into flying missile launchers. None of these people were professional soldiers, but they all understood what was at stake. The aliens had given humanity a choice: surrender or die. The humans had chosen a third option: fight back with everything they had. Dr. Lisa Parker finally achieved a breakthrough at 4 in the morning. Her quantum disruptor had successfully destroyed a target the size of a car. Energy beam had taken apart every atom in the test object, turning it into harmless gas in less than a second. "We did it," she whispered, hardly believing the results on her screen. "How many can we build?" asked Dr. Clark. Lisa looked at her calculations. "If we work nonstop and use every manufacturing facility in the country, we can build maybe 50 units before the aliens arrive." "Will 50 be enough?" "It has to be enough." Captain Steve Johnson's mission was a complete success. His teams had planted over 3,000 sensor beacons throughout the solar system without being detected. The aliens had no idea that every movement they made was being tracked and recorded. Steve's shuttle docked with the space station, where Admiral Williams was coordinating the space-based defense. She met him personally to hear his report. "The beacons are in place," Steve said. "We have complete coverage from Mercury to Pluto. If anything larger than a baseball moves out there, we'll know about it." "Excellent work," Williams replied. "We can see them coming." She led him to the observation deck, where they could see the alien fleet approaching. The 12 massive ships looked unstoppable, moving through space like dark mountains. Hundreds of smaller vessels surrounded them in perfect formation. "They're beautiful in a terrifying way," Steve said. "They're also overconfident," Williams replied. "Look at their formation. They're not expecting any real resistance. They think this will be easy." "Will it be?" Williams smiled for the first time since the crisis began. "Captain, these aliens have conquered 47 worlds. But they've never fought humans before. They don't know that we have a saying on Earth: never corner a dangerous animal unless you're prepared for it to fight back." As they watched, the alien fleet continued its approach toward Earth. In 60 hours, the battle would begin. But the aliens didn't know that Earth was no longer defenseless. Hidden weapons were being prepared. Unlikely soldiers were learning to fight. And deep in secret laboratories, scientists were creating technologies that would change the course of the war. The Zephyrian Empire had come expecting easy conquest. Instead, they were about to discover what happened when humanity decided to fight for survival. The alien fleet arrived exactly when they said they would. General Thaxmer stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the small blue planet grow larger on his screens. In 47 previous conquests, this moment had always been the same. The local inhabitants would send desperate messages, begging for mercy. Sometimes they would fire a few primitive weapons that bounced harmlessly off his shields. Then they would surrender. But Earth was silent. No messages, no weapons fire, no signs of panic. The planet looked completely peaceful, as if its people had simply accepted their fate. "Strange," muttered Commander Vextar, his second-in-command. "Usually they are screaming by now." "Perhaps they are wiser than most," Thaxmer replied. "Send the landing scouts to establish control points. Begin the colonization process." 300 Zephyrian fighters broke away from the main fleet and descended toward Earth's atmosphere. Their mission was simple: land at major population centers, set up communication equipment, and begin organizing the human population for processing. But the fighters never reached the surface. Lieutenant Rodriguez sat in a control bunker buried deep beneath the Arizona desert. His fingers hovered over a keyboard connected to the most powerful computer network ever built. For 3 days, he had been tracking the alien fleet through the sensor network that Captain Johnson's team had installed. Every ship, every movement, every energy reading was recorded and analyzed. "Incoming fighters detected," Sam announced into his headset. 300 units breaking from main formation." "Roger that," came Admiral Williams' voice from the command center. "Execute Phase 1. Sam pressed a single button, and the first surprise began. Hidden throughout the asteroid belt, 50 automated weapons platforms came to life. Each platform had been disguised as a piece of space junk, invisible to the alien sensors. But inside, each fake asteroid was a nuclear-powered kinetic launcher, capable of firing projectiles at 30% of light speed. The weapons fired simultaneously. 50 tiny objects, each no larger than a baseball, streaked toward the alien fleet at incredible speed. They had been launched from different angles, making them impossible to track or intercept. The first projectile struck a Zephyrian destroyer with the force of 100 nuclear bombs. The ship's shields held for exactly 1/10 of a second, before the kinetic energy tore through the hull like paper. The destroyer exploded in a brilliant flash of light. "Direct hit," Sam reported, watching his screens with amazement. "Target destroyed." 11 more projectiles found their targets. 4 destroyers and 2 cruisers vanished in explosions that lit up the solar system. The remaining shots missed, but they had done their job. The aliens now knew they were in a real fight. On the Zephyrian flagship, alarms were screaming. General Thaxmer stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 6 ships destroyed in as many seconds, and he still didn't know where the attack had come from. "Report," he shouted. "Unknown weapons fired from the asteroid field," Vexstar replied, his voice shaking. "Kinetic projectiles moving at impossible speeds. Our sensors never detected the launch points. Return fire. Destroy everything in that field." The alien fleet unleashed a massive barrage of energy weapons. Asteroids exploded in chains of fire as the Zephyrians tried to eliminate the hidden weapons platforms. But the humans had expected this response. Major Chris Taylor watched the light show from his command post on Luna Station. The aliens were wasting their ammunition on empty rocks while the real weapons platforms stayed hidden. Phase 1 had worked exactly as planned. "Phase 2 is go," he announced. Across the solar system, hundreds of civilian spacecraft began their approach toward the alien fleet. To the Zephyrians, they looked like refugees trying to escape the battle. Cargo haulers, passenger ships, mining vessels, and luxury yachts moved slowly through space, broadcasting distress signals and requests for safe passage. The aliens ignored them. These obviously harmless civilian craft posed no threat to a military fleet. They were wrong. Ellen Hayes gripped the controls of her modified racing ship as she approached the alien formation. Her tiny vessel looked like a rich person's toy compared to the massive warships around her. The aliens probably couldn't even see her on their sensors. That was exactly what she was counting on. "Target acquired," she whispered into her radio. "Beginning attack run." Hidden in her ship's cargo bay was one of Dr. Parker's quantum disruptors. The weapon was barely stable and would probably destroy her ship when it fired, but Ellen didn't care. She was a test pilot who had spent her life pushing machines to their limits. This was just another test flight, except this time the fate of humanity depended on the results. Ellen's ship was one of 300 civilian vessels approaching the alien fleet, which carried a different weapon: quantum disruptors, nuclear, mines, chemical explosives, or suicide ramming systems. The pilots were volunteers from every walk of life: crop dusters, airline captains, racing pilots, cargo haulers, and weekend space enthusiasts. None of them were professional soldiers, but all of them had decided that some things were worth dying for. The Zephyrians finally realized their mistake. When the first civilian ship exploded against the hull of a heavy cruiser, the quantum disruptor carved a hole through 3 decks before the unstable reaction consumed Ellen's ship. She died instantly, but her sacrifice opened the way for the other attacks. Danny, Floss's cargo hauler, rammed into an alien destroyer at full speed. His ship was loaded with industrial explosives that detonated on impact. The alien vessel broke in half, its crew compartments venting atmosphere into space. Tom Brown's converted passenger jet fired a salvo of guided missiles before being destroyed by alien point defense weapons. His missiles found their targets. Crippling to enemy fighters, one by one, the civilian attackers pressed home their assaults. Most were destroyed within seconds of beginning their attack runs. But each ship took at least one alien vessel with it, and some managed to damage much larger targets. General Thaxmer watched in horror as his fleet took massive casualties from what appeared to be a suicide attack by non-military vessels. All his years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. What kind of species armed cargo ships and sent racing pilots to attack warships? "They're insane," Vexstar said, staring at the tactical display. "These humans are completely insane. Retreat." 2 defensive positions, Thaxmer ordered. Reform the fleet and prepare for ... His words were cut off as another wave of attacks began. This time it wasn't civilian ships. Professional military vessels were emerging from hiding places throughout the solar system. But these weren't the large, slow battleships that the Zephyrians expected. Instead, hundreds of small Lucifast fighters swarmed toward the alien fleet like angry insects. Captain Steve Johnson led the first squadron of modified EMSA military fighters. His ship had been stripped of everything except engines, weapons, and life support. It was fast, deadly, and almost impossible to hit with heavy weapons designed to fight other capital ships. Remember, he announced to his pilots, we're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to cause as much damage as possible before they can adapt to our tactics. The human fighters attacked in patterns the aliens had never seen before. Instead of flying in neat formations, they moved like a pack of wild animals. Some fighters would attack head-on, while others came from unexpected angles. They used the wreckage of destroyed ships as cover, darting between pieces of debris to avoid enemy fire. The Zephyrians tried to respond with their own fighters. But they were trained for traditional space combat. Their pilots flew in rigid formations and followed predictable attack patterns. Against the chaotic, unpredictable human tactics, they were sitting targets. Within an hour, half the alien fleet was either destroyed or badly damaged. But the humans were taking heavy losses too. Most of the civilian volunteers were dead. Many of the military pilots had sacrificed their lives in kamikaze attacks. Admiral Williams watched the battle from her command center, her face grim. The plan was working. But the cost was higher than anyone had hoped. Phase 3, she ordered. The final surprise was about to begin. Phase 3 began with silence. For 10 minutes, no human weapons fired. The surviving alien ships regrouped, trying to understand what they were facing. General Thaxmer had lost over half his fleet to enemies who fought like nothing he had ever encountered. Status report, he demanded. Commander Vexstar studied the tactical displays with shaking hands. 7 dreadnoughts remaining, sir. 43 support vessels. We have lost over 200 ships, too. Chaos. Chaos is not a military strategy, Thaxmer growled. These humans have no order, no discipline. They fight like wild beasts. Sir, perhaps that is exactly why they are winning. Before Thaxmer could respond, his sensors detected new movement. 3 large human vessels were approaching from different directions. Unlike the small fighters and converted civilian ships, these looked like proper military vessels. Each was the size of a cruiser, with heavy armor and obvious weapon systems. Finally, Thaxmer said, real warships. Prepare to engage. The 3 human vessels moved slowly, broadcasting identification signals, according to their transmissions. They were hospital ships carrying wounded civilians away from the battle zone. The aliens hesitated. Even in war, there were rules about attacking medical vessels. That hesitation cost them everything, Colonel. Danny Foster commanded the lead hospital ship from a bridge that looked nothing like a medical facility. His vessel had been a cargo hauler until 3 days ago, when Dr. Parker's team had filled its cargo bays with the most dangerous weapon humanity had ever created. The Genesis device was not a bomb in any normal sense. It was a collection of self-replicating nanomachines designed to break down matter at the molecular level. Once released, the tiny machines would spread like a virus, converting everything they touched into more copies of themselves. Dr. Parker had called it the Gray Death because of what it did to living tissue. The nanomachines would break down organic matter within minutes, leaving behind only gray dust. It was a horrible weapon, but the aliens had given humanity no choice. Act target! The flagship, Danny ordered his crew. 1 shot is all we need. The 3 hospital ships opened fire simultaneously. Instead of energy beams or missiles, they released clouds of microscopic machines that drifted toward the alien fleet like deadly fog. General Thaxmer watched the strange attack with confusion. The humans had fired something, but his sensors couldn't identify any explosive warheads or energy signatures. Whatever they had launched seemed harmless. Sir, Vexstar said, his voice filled with growing panic. The hull plating on Deck 7 is ... changing. On the main screen, they could see the outer hull of their ship beginning to dissolve. The metal was turning gray and crumbling away like old paint. The process spread slowly but steadily, eating through armor that could withstand nuclear weapons. "What is this?" Daxmer demanded. "Some kind of molecular weapon," Vexstar replied. "It's breaking down the hull at the atomic level." Gray death spread from ship to ship as the nanomachines reproduced and sought new material to consume. Within an hour, 3 alien dreadnoughts had been reduced to clouds of gray dust drifting through space. But the nanomachines were not perfect. Dr. Parker had built them with a fatal flaw. They could only survive for 24 hours before their power sources failed. After that, they would simply stop working and drift harmlessly through space. The surviving alien ships retreated beyond the range of the gray death, waiting for the nanomachines to die. General Thaxmer found himself commanding only for dreadnoughts. In a handful of smaller vessels, his mighty invasion fleet had been reduced to a fraction of its original strength by an enemy that refused to fight fair. "Sir," Vexstar said quietly, "perhaps we should consider withdrawal." "Never," Thaxmer roared. "We are the Zephyrian Empire. We do not retreat from primitive planets." But even as he spoke, Thaxmer knew that Earth was not primitive. Had weapons and tactics that no other species had ever used. They turned civilian ships into weapons, sent untrained pilots on suicide missions, and created molecular weapons that dissolved starships. On Earth, Admiral Williams was preparing the final phase of humanity's defense. The alien fleet was badly damaged, but for dreadnoughts still remained. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy entire continents. "Status of the lunar defense platform?" she asked. "Ready for firing," came the reply from Lieutenant Colonel Ryan Brooks. "All systems are green." Williams nodded. The lunar platform was humanity's last and most powerful weapon. Built in secret over the past 5 years, it was essentially a massive railgun that used the moon's mass as a base for launching projectiles at incredible speeds. The platform could fire specially designed shells at 90% of light speed. Each shell carried a small nuclear warhead, but the real destructive power came from the kinetic energy of impact. When something moving that fast hit a target, the results were spectacular. "Fire when ready," Williams ordered. On the far side of the moon, the railgun platform charged its magnetic coils. The weapon was so powerful that it could only fire once every 6 hours without overheating. One shot should be enough. The platform fired with a flash of light visible from Earth. The projectile streaked across space faster than the alien sensors could track it. General Thaxmer's flagship had exactly 1 second of warning before the shell struck. The impact vaporized the entire front section of the dreadnought. The nuclear warhead detonated inside the ship's power core, creating a chain reaction that tore the massive vessel apart from the inside. The explosion was so bright that it briefly outshone the sun. "Flagship destroyed," reported Sam Rodriguez from his monitoring station. 3 dreadnoughts remaining. The surviving alien ships immediately began retreating toward the edge of the solar system. They had finally realized that Earth was not another easy conquest. These humans were something new and terrifying, species that had turned their entire world into a weapon. But Admiral Williams was not finished. Hidden throughout the solar system were hundreds of automated weapons platforms, missile batteries, and kinetic launchers. As the alien ships fled, each system activated in sequence, unleashing everything humanity had built for this moment. The retreat became a running battle that lasted for 6 hours. The aliens fought desperately to escape, while human weapons attacked. From every direction, asteroid bases launched nuclear missiles. Hidden platforms fired kinetic rounds. Modified satellites exploded themselves against alien hulls. Commander Vexstar, now the senior surviving officer of the invasion fleet, watched his last 2 dreadnoughts take heavy damage. Of the mighty fleet that had approached Earth just days before, only a handful of ships remained operational. "Sir," his communications officer reported, We're receiving a message from the human fleet. Put it through. Admiral Williams' voice filled the bridge of the alien ship. Her words were calm and clear, but they carried the weight of absolute victory. This is Admiral Williams of the Earth Defense Force. Your invasion has failed. You have one choice. Surrender now, and your survivors will be treated according to the rules of war. Continue fighting, and we will destroy every last one of your ships. Vexstar looked around his damaged bridge. Half his crew was dead. His ship's weapons were mostly destroyed. The hull was venting atmosphere in 3 places. Around him, the wreckage of the one-sprout Zephyrian fleet drifted through space. What are your terms? He asked. Complete surrender. Your ships will be escorted out of this solar system. You will return to your empire with a message. Earth is off limits. Any future invasion attempt will be met with the same response. Vexstar closed his eyes. The Zephyrian Empire had never suffered a defeat like this. They had lost an entire invasion, fleet to a single planet, but he had no choice. We surrender, he said. The battle for Earth was over. Humanity had won. 6 months after the battle, Commander Vexstar stood before the High Council of the Zephyrian Empire. The Great Hall was silent as he finished his report about the failed invasion of Earth. The council members stared at him with expressions of disbelief and horror. You are telling us, said High Counselor Kethryn slowly, that a single planet destroyed 98% of our invasion fleet. Yes, my lord, Vexstar replied. Humans fight unlike any species we have ever encountered. They use chaos. As a weapon, they turn civilian vessels into bombs. They create weapons that eat starships. Possible, muttered another counselor. No primitive planet could defeat our military. Earth is not primitive, Vexstar said firmly. Their technology is different from ours, but it is not inferior, and their willingness to sacrifice everything for victory. I have never seen anything like it. High Counselor Kethryn studied the battle recordings that Vexstar had brought back. The footage showed human cargo ships ramming into Zephyrian destroyers, small fighters attacking in impossible patterns, and weapons that turned matter into gray dust. These humans, Kethryn said finally, they are not like the others we have. Conquered, no, my lord. They are predators. We thought we were hunting prey, but we awakened something that should have been left alone. The High Council debated for hours. Some members wanted to send another fleet, larger and better prepared. Others argued for diplomatic contact, but most agreed with the final decision. The planet called Earth is hereby designated as forbidden territory, Kethryn announced. All Zephyrian vessels are ordered to avoid that solar system. We will find easier conquests elsewhere. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Parker stood in her rebuilt laboratory, looking at the new weapons her team was creating. The quantum disruptor technology had advanced rapidly during the 6 months since the invasion. What had once been experimental equipment was now being mass-produced in factories around the world. How many units can we build this year? Asked Dr. Ben Clark. 5,000, Lisa replied. And each one is twice as powerful as the prototypes we used in the battle. Do you think the aliens will come back? Lisa shook her head. Not the Zephyrians. But there are other species out there. Word will spread about what happened here. Some will be curious. Others will see us as a threat that needs to be eliminated. She walked to the window and looked up at the sky. We need to be ready for whatever comes next. In space above Earth, construction crews were putting the finishing touches on the first human dreadnought. The massive ship was built using technology captured from the alien wrecks. Combined with human innovations that made it unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen, Captain Steve Johnson, now promoted to Admiral, toured the new ship with a mixture of pride and concern. The vessel was armed with quantum disruptors, kinetic launchers, and a dozen other weapons that human scientists had developed since the invasion. She's beautiful, said his second-in-command, Captain Ellen Hayes. Ellen had survived her suicide attack during the battle when her ejection pod was recovered by a rescue ship. Now she commanded one of the new human fighter squadrons. She's necessary, Steve replied. The galaxy knows about us now. We can't pretend to be a peaceful little planet anymore. Are you worried? Steve looked out at the stars through the ship's main window. I'm worried about what we might become. Fighting the Zephyrians changed us. We learned to be ruthless when we had to be. I just hope we don't forget how to be human. Down on Earth, Admiral Williams was meeting with representatives from 12 different alien species. Word of humanity's victory over the Zephyrians had spread quickly through the galaxy. Some aliens came seeking military alliances. Others wanted to trade for human weapons technology. A few came simply out of curiosity about the species that had achieved the impossible. Your victory has upset the balance of power in this region, said Ambassador Tilksmore, a tall reptilian creature from the Stellar Alliance. The Zephyrian Empire controlled 47 star systems. With their fleet destroyed, those systems are now vulnerable. That's not our problem, Williams replied. We defended ourselves. What happens to the rest of the galaxy is not our concern. But it could be your opportunity, suggested Ambassador Yarthek from the Trade Federation. Your military technology is now the most advanced in known space. You could claim those 47 systems for yourselves. Williams shook her head. We're not conquerors. We just want to be left alone. I'm afraid that may no longer be possible, said Ambassador Quintel from the Peaceful Worlds Coalition. There are species in this galaxy that see strength as a threat. They may decide that humanity needs to be eliminated before you become too powerful. After the meeting, Williams walked through the memorial garden that had been built to honor those who died defending Earth. Thousands of names were carved into black stone, from professional soldiers to civilian volunteers who had given their lives in the battle. She stopped at one particular section where the names of the suicide pilots were listed. Ellen Hay's name was there, even though she had survived. It had taken weeks to convince the memorial committee to remove it. Regrets? Asked Colonel Brooks, joining her at the memorial. Many, Williams replied, but not about fighting.
We did.
What we had to do? The politicians want to build a fleet, Brooks said. They're talking about exploring those abandoned Zephyrian systems. I know. I've been getting pressure from every government on Earth. What do you think? Williams touched one of the carved names, that of a cargo pilot who had rammed his ship into an alien cruiser. I think we opened a door that we can't close. The galaxy knows about us now. Some will want to be our friends. Others will want to destroy us. Either way, we can't go back to being an isolated little world, so we build the fleet. We build the fleet. But we remember why we fought. We didn't fight to become conquerors. We fought to protect our home and our freedom. 3 months later, the first human exploration ship left the solar system. Its mission was peaceful, to make contact with the species living in the former Zephyrian territories and offer assistance to worlds that had been oppressed by the Empire. But the ship was also heavily armed with the latest human weapons. The galaxy had learned that humanity could fight. Now it was time to learn what humans did with victory. Admiral Martinez, formerly communications specialist Jake Martinez, commanded the exploration mission from the bridge of the starship Endeavour. He had been the first person to detect the alien invasion signal, and now he was the first human to lead an official mission to another star system. Approaching the Kepler 442 system, reported his navigation officer, sensors detect 3 inhabited planets. Any signs of military activity? Negative. We're receiving what appears to be a distress signal. Jake studied the data on his screen. The Kepler system had been under Zephyrian control for over 50 years. The local population had been enslaved and forced to mine rare metals for the Empire. With the Zephyrians gone, the planets were free but defenseless. Open a communication channel, Jake ordered. The main screen showed the face of an alien that looked like a cross between a human and a dolphin. The creature's large eyes were filled with hope and fear. "It's an unknown vessel," the alien said in broken Galactic standard language. "Please identify yourselves." "This is Admiral Martinez of the Earth Defense Force," Jake replied. "We come in peace. We understand your worlds were recently freed from Zephyrian control. We're here to help." The alien's expression changed to amazement. "You are the humans? The ones who destroyed the Zephyrian fleet?" "We are. We have heard the stories, the songs, the legends. You are the ones who gave the galaxy hope." Ouch. A weight of responsibility settled on his shoulders. "We're just people trying to do the right thing." That, the alien said with something that might have been a smile, is exactly what the galaxy needs. As the Endeavour moved into orbit around the first planet, Jake received a message from Earth. It was from Admiral Williams, now serving as the head of the new Galactic Relations Department. Jake, her recorded message said, "You're about to discover that winning a war is easier than winning a peace. The galaxy is watching us. Some see us as saviors. Others see us as the next threat to be eliminated. Your mission is to show them who we really are." Jake looked out at the stars surrounding his ship. Somewhere out there were species that would become humanity's allies. Others would become enemies. Many were probably still deciding which side to choose. "Helm," he said, "take us to the first planet. Let's introduce ourselves to the galaxy." The age of human expansion had begun. The species that had once been alone in the cosmos was now a major power among the stars. They had proven that they could fight when necessary. They would prove what they could build when they chose to create instead of destroy. The galaxy would never be the same.